Bring in our panel. We'll start there with Rubio's appearance. Kimberly Strassel, Fox News contributor. Tom Bevan, Real Clear Politics co-founder and president. And Yemisi Egbewale, former chief of staff and advisor to the Biden White House press office. You know, Kimberly, Secretary Rubio has proven himself to be a pretty stern advocate of Trump foreign policy and showed that on Capitol Hill today.
Yeah, I thought he did a great job. And look, it was always going to be the case. Democrats have been salivating to get him in front of them in this committee so that they could hit him with all kinds of things about this boat strike and are we at war and is there, you know, what other problems are coming of this? And you saw Rand Paul there, too. I thought he handled himself extremely well, and I thought really represented the administration well in terms of this. But more interesting to me was what he actually said about the kind of plan for Venezuela, which seemed to be that nothing's going to happen here overnight, but we're not going to forever tolerate this current ongoing Maduro leftover regime. We do have a plan for transitioning to this country to something better, much better.
Yeah, and Rand Paul obviously giving him some tough questions on the authorization. You mentioned Democrats. Here's an exchange with Tammy Duckworth from Illinois.
So you're saying that we're at war?
We are absolutely. When it comes to narco-trafficking groups and criminal gangs that are targeting the United States for criminal activity,
we're in a state of war.
There's no doubt about the fact that we're confronting them in a warlike setting because they're waging war on.
You're saying that he can invoke this wartime power.
No, I'm saying, you're asking me, I'm here to discuss foreign policy and what's in the realm of the Department of State.
Yemisi went on to say, and the Hill writes it up, that there could be more military action if Venezuela leaders, the goals are not met. Saying a move by Democrats to constrain the president's ability to launch new military operations has gained some GOP support. 5 Republicans joined all Democrats earlier this month to advance a war powers resolution that would require the president to come to Congress for authorization for further military action against Venezuela. Rubio saying that there could be more to come.
Yeah, I mean, look, Democrats knew that this was going to be a highly visible hearing, and this was really going to be their one chance to ask one-on-one questions to the secretary. Duckworth, of course, was always going to be the tough questioner as somebody who served herself. I think Senator Rosen also did a great job in this hearing as well. I mean, Dems got a win when it came to the war powers resolution, and they really held Rubio's feet to the fire. And that's not to say that the secretary didn't hold his own as well, but there were questions that remained unanswered, and I think Dems did a really great job of staying out of virality and not overplaying their hand and just sticking to the facts on this.
Yeah, Rubio answers pretty much every question. A lot of times they don't, but he does. One poll that caught our eye in our new Fox poll, Tom, is the view of how much time President Trump spends on issues, immigration, foreign policy, economy, and too much time is really low on the economy, and it seems like there is this, at least in this poll, and these respondents of registered voters, it's a little upside down. Your thoughts on that? And let me play the soundbite first, because in recent days, the president has been to Iowa talking about the economy. Today, he's talking about Trump accounts. Take a listen.
Under this program, the U.S. government will automatically create a tax-free investment account for every newborn American child, something that nobody really would have even thought of. Under this administration, we're going to leave every child with real assets and a shot at financial freedom.
Clearly, the administration sees those numbers out there.
Yeah, I mean, I thought this was the best event they'd done on the economy. I mean, he went all the way out to Iowa and, you know, gave this speech, but with what was going on in the news out of Minneapolis, and then he posted to Truth Social that he's got an armada steaming toward Iran and threatening them. His economy speech ended up being like the fourth news story of the day. At least this was featured. That poll is really disturbing. And when you look at a poll like that, you got to dig into the internals and the partisan splits. Throw out the Democrats because they hate him. They'll never give him credit. Look at independents, look at Republicans, because that's what the Republican Party needs and what Trump needs for the midterms. And 78% of independents think that Trump isn't spending enough time on the economy. That's a huge number. And the economy is the number one issue by an order of magnitude. Inflation in the economy is 36%. The next closest thing is like 15%. So a lot of work for the administration to continue to do on the economic front.
Yeah, and it's important that you look inside polls. This poll happens to trend with other polls in a lot of these questions that we've seen in recent days. Kimberly, I want to ask you about the economy. We talked the other day with David Asman. Gold prices, if we look at gold shooting up, and it's going through the roof. You look at silver prices going through the roof. The dollar could have further to fall. A lot of reports about this and its decline creating a double-edged sword. Tuesday saw the dollar suffer its worst one-day slide since April, when President Trump's so-called Liberation Day announcement sparked what became known as the Sell America trade. The decline came after the president told reporters in Iowa he believes the dollar is doing great. Pressed on that, the Treasury Secretary answered today.
The U.S. always has a strong dollar policy, but a strong dollar policy means setting the right fundamentals. And I think that with President Trump, with the One Big Beautiful Bill, with our regulatory policies, we are making this the best place to come build your business.
Are we intervening in the currency market right now, strengthening the yen? Is that happening?
Absolutely not.
Kimberly, it is important to note that the weak dollar does increase exports. It does a number of things, but people obviously are scared of a weak dollar.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a legitimate question, too, to wonder just how committed this administration is to a strong dollar. I mean, this is always a lure, and you get some benefit out of, as you just mentioned, exports, et cetera. But there are real risks, and there is no time to be messing around with this right now. Look, I think this economy is in a very odd, muddled position. You've had some really good, encouraging things like those GDP numbers in the fourth quarter. You've seen gas prices going down, inflation has come down, but there's real concerns about the job market. Businesses laying off. We just had the huge Amazon layoffs. You've also had businesses saying they're not going to invest or hire while they wait to see the fallout from the Trump tariffs. And of course, that's sitting in the Supreme Court. So there's this wait and see moment. And the administration, if it really wants to sell itself economically going into this midterm, it's going to have to be a lot more forceful about all of these basic issues and a lot more focused than it has been up until now.
Yeah, see the Federal Reserve holding rates the same. Wall Street Journal saying first time since July, the Fed has navigated between competing risks for months, inflation slowing in 2023 and 24, but then stalled out above the central bank's 2% goal over the past year, arguing for patience. Meanwhile, concerns over a cooling labor market prompted last year's 3 cuts. 2 Fed governors, both appointed by President Trump, dissented against the decision, favored a quarter-point rate. But the Fed keeping the rate the same, and Jerome Powell talking about that today.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be unfortunate for the president because this also means that mortgage prices remain the same, and that is high. And for people who are looking to be first-time home buyers, like my generation, that is going to be incredibly difficult to see how to support the president and how to support Republicans as we get closer to the midterms. But also for people of an older generation that are looking to refinance their homes. Look, the president can do as much as he can with these Trump accounts, but at the end of the day, it's about how people feel in this economy, and how people feel is also how they feel about their homes. And the homes that they're living in are expensive to refinance and also to buy for the first time. So I think it's just going to be difficult with these Fed rates.
But Tom, arguably his next choice for a Fed Reserve chair is probably going to be advocating for a rate cut, and also, believe it or not, with the weak dollar, you could see those interest rates going down too.
Yeah, you would think that his next choice for Fed chair would have gotten the message the way that he's been beating up Jerome Powell over interest rates. And obviously Trump thinks the rates have been too high for way too long, and he wants to see them come down. And obviously, heading into the midterms, Larry Kudlow and all the folks around Trump, they're touting they want more growth and they want less regulation. That's what Bessent continues to talk about on a daily basis. And they think that the big, beautiful bill and the things that they have put in place are going to come to fruition over the next few months. And, for their sake, they better hope they're right, because otherwise Republicans are going to be in for a rough ride in November.
Last thing, Kimberly, we're getting word that Tom Homan's going to have a news conference tomorrow morning in Minneapolis. He's met with both the governor and the mayor in Minneapolis. Your sense of where this next step with ICE agents and this standoff in Minnesota goes?
Look, he's got to get some cooperation from the Democrats, and that's going to be where I'm looking is, are they willing to also make some concessions on their side in order to calm things down? The Trump administration, clearly they're in there with new guys. I think they're willing to take some steps and to remove some officers, but they're going to ask for some cooperation. Will Democratic leaders be willing to give any of it?
That is the question. We'll hear from the border czar, Tom Homan, tomorrow morning, live on Fox. Panel, thanks.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.